What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and Jake College Football Show. Conference Championship weekend. It's the final weekend before we get into bowl season. Army-Navy game, I understand that, but bowl season and playoffs are right around the corner. This is our last weekend. I think the playoffs are going to be set after Saturday. So this is it. We are at the end officially. Going to be, typical show, just a lot less games to go through. We'll start with some news from the week, and since the season's basically done for a lot of teams, we do have a lot of coaching changes going on. I'm not going to get into the coordinators that are, being let go and moving positions yet. I'll kind of wait for a little bit of that dust to settle, but we do have some coaches getting fired this week. And then conference championship games. I am going to get into, on Friday we got UNLV and Boise, and then Tulane and Army. I am going to get into those a little bit. Typically, I avoid G5 games just because, P4 has so much going on already, and I only have so much time, so I don't focus a lot of my energy onto G5, but it's conference championship weekend. Not a lot of games, which means I can focus a little more attention on those. So I will be getting to some of those games. And then I'm not giving out my 5 faves per se. I'm struggling just because, again, championship weekend, a lot less games, a lot less to choose from. So I'm not giving out my 5 faves. Instead, I'm just giving out some bets that I am keeping an eye on and leaning towards. And if you follow me on Twitter, I will be posting Friday bets tomorrow and then Saturday bets on Saturday. So when I finally come to a decision on some of these, you will know if you follow me on Twitter. But I'll still give you some of the bets that I'm leaning towards. But I do have the final Power 4 parlay of the year, and it is a biggie. I'm hoping it hits, brings us back. I'm not going to count. I go back and forth on whether or not I'm going to count these towards the season total when it comes to betting. I'm not doing that with bowl season. I will do it with the playoffs. Still up in the air. I haven't decided yet on these yet, but yeah, that's a longish, short version of what to expect in this episode. But before we get into any of that, let's get a little high. All right, let's get into some news from the week. Gus Malzahn stepped down as head coach at UCF. This news did come out on like Friday or Saturday or whatever it was, so this has been known for a minute. I just didn't want to talk about it on Sunday show. I just wanted to recap rivalry weekend. But he has stepped down. He has taken over the Florida State offensive coordinator job. I don't really love the move, I guess. I think if he had stayed at UCF, he was on his way out, whether or not he got fired or just stepped down like he did. But I don't love this move for Florida State. Maybe I'll come around on it once kind of all the dust settles, but right now I don't love it. Ryan Walters out at Purdue. Here's my problem with college football is it used to be you hire a coach, you give them like 3 years. Because let's be honest, when you hire a coach, that first year they're there, recruiting classes, that's not their recruiting class. They're having to maybe struggle to get a couple guys in, that sort of thing. It's that second year when they're able to get in all their guys that they want to recruit. And then that third year when they get that second class in, and that's when you start to see improvement and make your decision. Coaches deserve at least 3 years to try and turn around a team. Now, some will argue that with NIL, transfer portal, you should be able to turn around a team in 1 year. Look at Kirk Cigneti. Cigneti's different. That's not going to happen with every coach. Some coaches do need time, and I do wish Ryan Walters got at least 1 more year for multiple reasons. One, because I don't even know if the Gophers play Purdue next year, but that's just an easy win for everybody. But two, like I said, I think college coaches deserve at least 3 years. Neil Brown, also out at West Virginia. We kind of saw this one coming. He was already on the hot seat going into last year, and then they had that great season, good season, and then it's just been disappointing as hell this year. Last year, obviously, was kind of a flash in the pan. Now, maybe you could argue their schedule was a little harder this year. I think they've reached their ceiling with him, so I'm not shocked that he is out at West Virginia. And then there's been a lot of like turnover when it comes to offensive coordinator, defensive coordinators, hired, fired, that sort of thing. Nebraska just lost their defensive coordinator to Florida State. I think Eric Bieniemy was fired. There's a ton going on. We'll get into coordinators when we kind of, like I said, the dust settles and the season's pretty much done at that point. College football playoff rankings, the second to last rankings to come out, and I didn't love it. Every week I can always find a little something to nitpick. So here's my problem this week. This actually is not with the committee. This is just Notre Dame fans, actually. They need to shut the fuck up. They claim that they should be ranked higher than Penn State, and that is just, I don't know what delusional world they're living in. There's no way in hell that should be. And one stat that I see that they love to throw around is that Notre Dame has 4 wins against ranked teams, whereas Penn State only has 1. That's not the flex that they think it is. It really is not. 2 of those 4 ranked wins were Army and Navy. No disrespect to our military. I love this country. They were only ranked because they were undefeated. They weren't ranked because they were actually good. They had no business beating any ranked team, honestly. So that's 4 with an asterisk. You really have beat 2. I understand that when you look back at history and the schedule, it will say 4 because technically they were ranked. They didn't deserve it. Everybody knows it. They would have lost to most of the P4 teams they would have played. I put it at only a third had a chance to lose to them. So it's not the flex that they think it is. Boise still has the 4 seed, so they are still in position for a bye if they win the Mountain West Championship game, which we will get into. I still can't put them there. I don't, unless... If they win the Mountain West Championship, then fine. I guess I'll accept that they're there. But until they do that, I still think that spot should go to the Big 12 champion. And honestly, I think it might in the end because a little spoiler, I don't think Boise's going to win. Another thing, I would have had Tennessee and Ohio State flipped. But I get why. This one's probably my least gripe that I have when it comes to the rankings. I just think that you could make an argument for either side. So I don't hate that they have Ohio State 1 in front of Tennessee. It really could go either way. But I probably myself would have had them flipped. Actually, and I think if you go back to last episode, I'm pretty sure I did have them flipped. And then lastly, this is my biggest gripe. Bama does not. No, why are we putting Bama in the playoff right now and dropping Miami out? Miami does not deserve to be dropped out of the playoff. I don't care. They lost to a 9-3 Syracuse team. It's not like Syracuse is 6-6, and they also lost to Georgia Tech again. Not a team that's 6-6, 5-7. Sure, I think Georgia Tech might be 7-5. I don't. It's either 8-4 or 7-5. But this is a Georgia Tech team that took Georgia to 8 overtime? Yeah, 8 overtimes. So Miami's losses really aren't that terrible or not as terrible as everybody's making them out to be. Now, yes, I know their defense has been terrible and allowing a lot of points. That offense cannot be stopped, but that defense can't stop shit. They're still 10-2. They still only have 2 losses. They should not have Bama in front of them just because the SEC is superior and it's Bama. No, that's not the case. That should not be the case. Bama lost to Oklahoma, they lost to Vanderbilt, and they lost to Tennessee. Tennessee's a good loss. Oklahoma's not a good loss. Vanderbilt's not a great loss either. They're 6-6. What are we doing? Why are you putting Alabama in? They did not deserve it. And dropping Miami out is just ridiculous. I hope they realize that mistake and they fix it on Sunday. I doubt they will, but you can always hope. All right, let's get into the games this weekend. We will start with the Mountain West Championship game. We'll just get right into it. This is a playoff game, essentially, because the winner makes the playoffs. Because there's going to be one group of 5 team every year that makes it. I'm sure in some rare cases we may have two. But this year there's only going to be one. And it is Boise or UNLV, because UNLV is the only other G5 team that's ranked high enough to, I guess, be jumped into it, because it goes to the highest ranked. And honestly, there's some that may argue that if Boise loses, they may still make the playoff over UNLV. They just wouldn't get the bye week because they wouldn't be a conference champion. So just saying, there is still a chance that Boise loses and still makes the playoffs. I don't think they should. I think whoever wins this game should make the playoff, but whatever. I'm not in the committee. I don't make the decisions. Boise, I know I don't cover G5 teams, so here's a little overview of both teams. Boise's 11-1 on the season. Their solo loss to Oregon by 3, like second game of the season. UNLV, 2 losses on the season. One of those being to Boise State by 5, and the other one to Syracuse, who is 9-3 in overtime. Honestly, both teams have great losses. You know what I mean. It's not like they lost to terrible teams. They've dominated the whole year, lost to good teams, lost to teams that you could argue they should be losing to. Boise shouldn't be beating Oregon. UNLV shouldn't be beating Syracuse, but they almost did. We all know about Ashton Genty. We don't really need to get into that. Just how dominant he's been. But the rest of the offense, I mean, Maddox, Madsen. My goodness, I don't know what they were thinking. He's had a good year. Nothing crazy, nothing spectacular. He's just been very efficient and doesn't turn the ball over. He's got 2,500 plus passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He just doesn't turn the ball over, and he's efficient with the ball. That's really all they ask him to do, because Ashton Genty is that offense. They have the 6th best passing attack in the Mountain West, which is not great. That equals also 72nd in the nation. So, like I said, Ashton Genty is their offense. 6th best rush attack in the nation. And defensively, honestly, they're not terrible. They're great against the run, but they're terrible against the pass. They are 118th in the nation against the pass. Not great. But like I said, they do have a good run defense, top 20 in the nation. They are 6th in tackles for loss a game and 2nd in sacks. So a good defense. They get after the quarterback. They just allow a lot of passing yards. Now, one could argue part of the reason they do allow so many passing yards is they're always ahead and teams are trying to catch up. You can make that argument, and I'll listen. UNLV started the season with a little bit of drama. They went 3-0, and then their quarterback, Matthew Sluka, decided, I'm going to enter the transfer portal because I'm not getting paid what I said I was going to get paid, and 3 games into the season, he pulls a red shirt and leaves the team. And everybody's, oh my goodness, how are they going to recover? Their starting quarterback left, and they didn't even skip a beat. I don't even think they cared that he left. Some would even argue they looked better. Haj Malik Williams has been solid at quarterback. He has just under 2,000 yards passing. He's got about 1,700 plus, 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But he's also dynamic with his legs. 700 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground as well. Very, very much like Boise, this is a run-first team, and honestly, defensively, same. Very similar to Boise as well. They have the very terrible pass defense, 109th in the nation, but great run defense, 10th, top 20 in tackles for loss, and they are great at getting after the quarterback as well. They are 13th in the nation in getting sacks. So it's crazy how similar these two teams are. They also have, what's his name, Ricky White or whatnot on, I think that's his name. If you guys haven't seen him, he's blocked like 3 or 4 punts this year. He is their passing attack. He is probably the only receiver that they do have. Basically, what it comes down to in this game is who's going to have more success on the ground. When these teams did play earlier this year, yes, Boise came away with the win, but it was the worst game of the season for Genty. 128 yards, sure, I guess that's a good chunk for a normal running back. but it took 33 carries to get there. He didn't have 4 yards per carry, and it was the lowest yards per carry he's had all season by nearly a full yard. But they did end up winning 29-24, and a big reason for that is UNLV. They turned the ball over and gave Boise a short field to score a touchdown, and that was the difference in the game. But UNLV, they held Boise to 3 of 15 on third downs. Like I said, held Genty to a season low, but they couldn't stop Boise on fourth down. Boise was 4 for 4, and like I said, that turnover that gave Boise a short field, that was the difference in the game. I think, obviously, UNLV had a game plan for Genty the first time around. I'm sure they'll have one for him this time around as well. I think if their defense can just get off the field when it matters most, if they can just get that stop on fourth down, because they made the stops on third down, 3 of 15. If they can just get off the field on fourth down and don't turn the ball over in your own zone, that's another thing. Just don't turn the ball over in your own zone. I guess that's a lot to ask. I get it. It's easier said than done, but I think UNLV has a very similar game plan, if not a better game plan, and I think UNLV wins this one, guys. I really do. I just don't have a lot of faith in Boise in this one. Tulane at Army for the American Conference Championship. Army is a 5.5-point dog at home. They are 10-1. Tulane is 9-3. Army has had one of the easiest schedules of the season. Honestly, I swear. Even in their conference, they played the 5 worst teams in the conference, and they avoided playing Tulane, Memphis, and Navy, who are all the other top 4 teams in the top 4 of the conference. Now, granted, I know they play Navy next week, so leave me alone. I get that. But still, so far to this point in the season, they have not had to play any of them. And their non-con also has been pretty easy. The one good team that they have faced this year was Notre Dame, and they got their asses whooped. I just don't have faith in Army. I don't. And Tulane, look at Tulane's schedule too, even. Much more difficult. They had to play Navy. They also had to play Memphis. The only team that they haven't had to play in the top 4 is Army, who they play this week. And their non-con was not nearly as easy as Army's either. They had to play Oklahoma and Kansas State. You can argue Oklahoma's not a tough beat, but they're still a Power 4 team with SEC talent that you are going up against. They're still going to be a better team. And like I said, they had to play Navy and Memphis as well in conference. I give Tulane the edge. There's just all of this, everything points to Tulane. Tulane. The only thing that gives me hesitation is that it is never fun and it's never easy to play a triple option team. It just isn't. Now, defensively for both of these teams, they are 2 of the best defensive teams in the American Conference. I will give Tulane probably the edge offensively, only because they do have a better passing attack, obviously, because Army's a triple option team. But earlier this year, we did see Tulane go up against a triple option offense. Granted, Navy does throw the ball a little more than Army, but they're still triple option at the core. And they dominated that game. Navy only had 113 yards of offense, 1 of 11 on third down, shut out completely. Tulane rolled to an easy victory, 35-0, and that was just under 3 weeks ago. Really, when it comes down to my biggest, like I said, it's never fun or easy to play a triple option team, but they're also playing in New York in December. And for those who don't know where Tulane is, I'll give you a hint. It is south. It is in Louisiana. It is in the deep south. I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see how they handle the cold weather in December up in New York. Right off the lake, too. I'm pretty sure Army plays right on a lake, which never great. Everything, if this game was being played in a dome in the south, anywhere but the north, outside, I would hammer Tulane to win this game by a mile. It's just because it's cold and it's a triple option team. I'm a little hesitant. I think Tulane might win. I'll probably convince myself by Friday night, and you'll see a tweet hammering Tulane 5.5. But right now, I'm just a little hesitant. Saturday's championship games will start with the Big 12. Iowa State and Arizona State. Arizona State is a 2.5-point favorite. Arizona State comes into this one hot. They are on a 5-game win streak. Iowa State, not super hot. They are on a 3-game win streak, but they are only a few plays away from winning only one of the last 3 and actually one of the last 5, really. They beat Cincinnati, wasn't really close, but gave up a fourth quarter lead to Utah and had to come back and go ahead 3 with only 1:30 left in the game. Utah then drove down the field and missed a very long field goal to try and tie it. They beat Kansas State by 8 to finish out the season, but if you watch that game, Kansas State lost that game more than Iowa State won it. So it makes me a little hesitant just with momentum. It's been Arizona State. Arizona State has all the momentum coming into this one. Winners of 5 straight, like I said. Actually, 7 straight when Leavitt is the starter, because there was one game he did not play against Cincinnati and they lost. Jeff Sims was the quarterback, so you can imagine how that went. But a few of those wins in these last 5 or 7 games that Leavitt has been the starter have been pretty dominant wins. And biggest reason for that is Scadaboo, Tyson, and Leavitt. Scadaboo missed one of the last 5, but in the other 4, he's averaged 137 yards per game. Leavitt in the last 5 is averaging 255 per game, has 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then Tyson, just a monster. Over the last 5 has averaged 124 yards per game and 6 total touchdowns. This 3-headed monster is the sole reason that Arizona State has been on this win streak. And what sucks for them is Jordan Tyson is expected to miss this game with injury. They've straight up said he's not playing. I'm just going to leave it as is expected to miss. That's a huge blow. That really is, because when you look at their offense, the next leading receiver is Scadaboo. Your running back is your next leading receiver, and that's not great. Not that he's brilliant out of the backfield. He really is. It's just you still don't love your second leading receiver to be your running back. And not only is he's your second leading receiver. Not only is he your second leading receiver, but this is how far behind Tyson he is. He's behind by like 633 receiving yards, and he's got 40 less receptions. Yikes. And Iowa State does have one of the best pass defenses in the Big 12. So you lose your best pass catcher. Your second best pass catcher is your running back. And Iowa State has the best pass defense in the Big 12. Not great. What does play into Arizona State's favor, though, is they're terrible. One of the worst against the run. So if Arizona State can get Scadaboo rolling and get that man running people over and tearing them down, they're going to hate hitting him by the end of the game. And that loss of Tyson might all of a sudden hurt a little less if he gets rolling. So the Tyson injury does make me nervous. But Cam Scadaboo, I believe in Scadaboo. I think he is going to will this team to a win. I like Arizona State in this one, even with the injury. Georgia, Texas, SEC championship game in Atlanta. Texas is a 2.5-point favorite, which a little shocking because we've already seen this matchup. And Georgia went on the road and beat Texas 30-15. Now, even though Georgia won by 2 scores, they didn't necessarily play that well offensively. It's just 2 of their scoring drives were very short fields from Texas turnovers. So that was really the difference in the game, honestly, because 2 short fields, turn that into points, you win by 2 scores, makes sense. Neither team looked good offensively. Combined for 7 turnovers, 10 of 39 on 3rd and 4th downs, and just brutal all around. Defensive effort by both teams was, Texas less, but it's hard to give up when there's short fields. But since that game, Georgia's offense, up and down, but Beck has been brilliant over the last three. 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, after throwing 9 in the previous 4. So he went on a 4-game streak where he threw 9 total interceptions, but last 3, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, which is fantastic for him. Fantastic for Georgia, too. You got to be happy about that. Texas, since that game, though, has not necessarily been dominant offensively. Defensively, sure, both teams actually have been playing well enough, I should say. But yeah, Texas offense has just not been necessarily great. We've seen them only put up 20 points against Arkansas, and what was it? Well, 31 against a Kentucky team, but they had already died, given up, done with the season. 17 against Texas A&M. It's just been a weird, has not been dominating the way you would expect them to. That being said, I expect this game to be dominated by both defenses yet again. I just think, based on what we've seen just from them playing the previous game, but then even since that game, I don't see these offenses doing a whole lot, but I like Georgia's offense more, honestly. And obviously they have the advantage here because they are playing in Atlanta, which is basically a home field for Georgia. So that's tough for Texas, but I do have Georgia in this one. Penn State and Oregon for the Big Ten championship. Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite. Obviously, they're the favorite. Why wouldn't they be? They're undefeated. But Penn State definitely has a shot in this one. We've seen Penn State go up against a couple of the top defenses already in the Big Ten, against Minnesota and Ohio State. And, I mean, against Minnesota, they put up 26 points, 360 yards of offense. And against Ohio State, the yardage wasn't really there. Sure, they only scored 13 points. But two of their drives, ended inside of Ohio State's 5-yard line with 0 points. So they got the ball down there. They just couldn't quite capitalize. And, some of those things are fixable. And they've got the talent to fix that. So Penn State might be able to move the ball on Oregon a little bit. Now, when they've gone up against top offenses in the Big Ten, they've also fared pretty well. Penn State is the number 2 defense in the Big Ten, whereas Oregon is the number 1. Offense. Penn State's the number 2, Oregon's the number 1. But if we look at 3 versus 7, Penn State has fared very well against some of those offenses. Now, USC is going to be the one outlier. Some of that success, though, was because of turnovers, so it's an outlier. It's fine. But Penn State only held Ohio State to 20, which 20 points, for Ohio State, that's pretty good. Now, I know Michigan held them to less than that, but whatever. Ohio State should be scoring like 40 every game. Held Maryland, now, whatever, this one's controversial, but they held Maryland to 7. You could argue Maryland's already given up on the season. And then they held Washington to 6. So when they've played some of the top offenses, which obviously they're number 2, Oregon's number 1, already said that, they haven't necessarily played bad. Oregon, when their offense has had to go against top defenses, they've done pretty well. Against Ohio State, 32 points and nearly 500 yards of offense, and against Michigan, 38 points and, again, nearly 500 yards of offense. And then when their defense has gone against top offenses, they also did very well. Ohio State, I guess, is kind of the outlier, but against teams 3 through 7, Ohio State 31 points, nearly 500 yards allowed, so not great. Again, that's the outlier, but Maryland only put up 18, only had 289 yards of offense. Washington put up 21 and 244 yards. I mean, you could argue 21 points is too much, but whatever. They didn't play bad, and I think some of that might have been in garbage time. These teams are very evenly matched when you look at them. Penn State, I will give the slight edge defensively, whereas Oregon has the slight edge offensively. I'm so excited for this game. Honestly, this is probably the game that I'm looking forward to the most. I fully expect it to be close, and I am giving the edge to Penn State in this one. It is so difficult to go undefeated for a full season, and Oregon so far has done it, and I'm not saying they can't. It's difficult, though. And I think if you told Oregon that they had to lose one game the rest of the year, they would pick this one every single time. So I think Penn State might pull it out. And we all know James Franklin's record against going top 5 teams or whatever it is. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Once in a while, he is still going to get a win, even though his record is terrible against top 5 teams. I think Penn State ekes this one out and goes into the playoff with a bye. Clemson versus SMU, ACC championship game. SMU is a 2.5-point favorite. So preseason, I picked Clemson to win the ACC championship game, and I had them as the 4 spot in the playoff. So obviously, if they win this game, that makes me look better with that prediction. But I don't think they deserve it. They are lucky to even be in this game to begin with. When Clemson has had to face a team with a record above 500, they are 1-3. With a record of 500 or below, they are 8-0. Not great. When you start to kind of break it down, the defense kind of has played the same regardless. Above 500, they're allowing maybe 100 more yards a game and an extra touchdown. So going from 19 to 26 points and 320 to 420, it's not drastic. But offensively, we're looking at quite a difference. Above 500, they are scoring 15 points a game and 350 yards of offense. Whereas 500 or below, against those teams, nearly 46 points per game and over 500 yards of offense. It is shocking. We've seen it all year. They, like I just laid out for you, they play a good team and they struggle. And the offense is the biggest offender. Just the drop-off is just so alarming. They're scoring 30 less points a game and nearly 175 yards less of offense. Clemson is just fraudulent. They tricked us after that Georgia game when they destroyed a bunch of bad and mediocre teams, and they made us think that they were good, and then all of a sudden they actually play good teams, and it's not great. It hasn't been pretty. SMU, on the other hand, once they named Kevin Jennings the official starter, what was that, like 3 games into the season, has played very well. And I guess when we look back, though, at the teams that they have faced, not a lot of them scare you defensively. I guess the 2 best defenses they faced, Duke and Louisville, maybe BYU, but that was pre-Kevin Jennings. That was the game that they officially decided like midway through, all right, Kevin Jennings or bust. They struggled a lot against Duke's defense, though. They did have over 450 yards of offense, which is great, but they turned it over 6 times, and they only beat Duke by like 1 or 2 points, and they were just lucky to come out with a win because Duke couldn't capitalize. I think they missed like 2 or 3 field goals, which, again, SMU only won by like 1 or 2 points. And they did struggle a lot with BYU, but again, that was before they made the full-time switch to Jennings. Once they did make that switch at like halftime, they played a lot better. Let's just put it that way. Against Louisville, who you could argue was the second best defense, the offense was rolling. It was a back and forth game, so you could argue maybe the defense isn't as great, but SMU had no troubles on offense in that game. So I don't foresee, because you look at South Carolina, Clemson was able to shut them down, but I think Kevin Jennings might not be as electric with his feet, but he's still electric. But I think he's a better passer than Lenoris Sellers at this point in his career. So I do give the edge to SMU to not be shut down for the ball. I mean, South Carolina still came away with the win, so don't get me wrong there, but I do think SMU can put some points up on Clemson. Defensively, I guess it's hard to say if SMU is really that good. They avoided most of the top offenses in the ACC, so this might be one of their biggest tests of the season. And I will say I am biased in this game because I like I said, Clemson would make it look better for my preseason prediction, but I am rooting for SMU. I've been backing them all year. And if Clemson wins, they're most likely going to make the playoff, and we just cannot have that. Clemson making the playoff will just be terrible because they'll get beat so badly by whoever they end up playing. So I want SMU to win, but I also think that they are going to. Just based on how fraudulent Clemson's been against good teams, I don't think it's going to go well for them. So yeah, that's my preview for championship weekend. Now I get it. There's a lot more group of 5 games that are being played, championship games. I don't know enough about those teams. I will say this. I like Jacksonville State. I think they're playing Western Kentucky. I like Jacksonville State in that one, if that means anything to anybody. But I didn't want to preview those games and give, my predictions and bets when I don't really know anything about those teams. UNLV and Boise is different because, we've seen Boise a lot, and there's also been a lot of UNLV talk if you follow college football. And then Tulane, Army. I mean, Tulane's played a few Power 4 teams. I've already seen them a couple times this year. Army was ranked. Talked about them a lot. That Army-Navy matchup at the end of the year. So, I mean, I can do it with some. I can't do it with all. So that is my championship preview. Let's get into some betting, though. Again, these are not going to be 5 faves. These are where I'm leaning. If you want my actual official picks, I will be posting those on Twitter on Friday and on Saturday. But before we get into betting, actually, let's take a quick smoke break. All right, let's talk betting. I'm just going to get the Power 4 parlay out of the way right away. This parlay, I think I will and just include because it's the last Power 4 parlay of the year. We won't really be able to do this again. I guess we maybe could when the playoffs come, but screw it. We can still do it during bowl season. I got Arizona State, Georgia, Penn State, SMU. That comes out to plus 1606. And honestly, I'm probably going to sprinkle a little on a few of those money lines just solo as well. I did not include them when I go through some of these bets, but Georgia and Penn State. I might be sprinkling a little on those just individual. UNLV. I mentioned it earlier in the preview. I like them straight up. And right now they are at plus 155 straight up. I like them straight up. And I also think in this game, the under is going to hit. Now, that's going to be kind of a theme, too, is there's a couple games where I don't know over or under, so I just backed away from it for now. I got to sleep on that. But a few of these games, I do like the unders in it, which makes me a little nervous that I'm leaning a lot of unders. But I got UNLV Boise under 57.5 at minus 105. Both teams like to run the ball. Both teams are good at stopping the run. Whoever can establish a run game is going to win. But when teams like to run the ball and both teams are doing it a lot, it tends to run the clock a lot more and less possessions, less scoring. There we go. I don't like the odds for this one, so I'm going back and forth on this, but I like Boise team total under 31.5. I still probably would take that at 30.5. So if that does end up dropping, that's probably when I'll hit it, just because I don't like the minus 130. But team total under 31.5, I do like that a lot. Based off of my Power 4 parlay, I like Georgia and Penn State both to cover. Georgia's at plus 2.5 minus 102, and Penn State's at plus 3.5 minus 115. Like I said, Oregon's going to lose eventually. They gotta. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to go undefeated for a full season. Penn State's got to win the big one eventually. I mean, like I said, a broken clock's right twice a day. So I do like them to cover. I like them to win straight up. I also like the Penn State-Oregon under 50.5 at minus 114. We've already seen it with Penn State a few times this year. Whenever they've gone up against top teams, their defense is good enough to stop other teams. So I expect this game to go under 50.5. I do. I just think they'll make enough stops defensively, and I guarantee Oregon's also going to make stops defensively. I just think this is going to be a very, very low-scoring game. Clemson, SMU, under 55.5 at minus 115. again, we've seen it with Clemson. It's not that I think SMU will be able to score. I worry about Clemson. I just don't trust this offense against SMU or anybody, honestly, just because anybody that's a good team. So I think SMU can score, and honestly, I might start looking at that SMU team total. I don't know what it is off the top of my head here, but I just don't trust Clemson. And then I also have SMU -2.5 at -110. I mean, they're going to win by at least a field goal. I expect them to win by a lot more because, like I said, I don't trust Clemson to score. So that reason alone, -2.5, I feel like is an easy one. But again, I will be posting my official bets Friday and Saturday since there's games on both. Well, thank you all for joining me. This is kind of it, guys. This is really the end of the season. Next week, so I will be joining you on Sunday to recap championship weekend. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this after the playoff is released, so combine that all as one, or if I'll do this before and then do a second one after, to be determined. But regardless, there will be playoff talk. And then after that, I will preview Army-Navy, so that will be coming out Thursday. And then I'm also going to just do kind of a look back at the season, go back to some of my preseason predictions, go through some of the best and the worst, team totals, everything like that, kind of see where we're at the end of the season. And then after that, obviously we got bowl season, so there's going to be a ton of games that I'll be able to preview every week. I'll do my best to preview them because we know how bowl season is. Then we got playoffs. I'm also going to start sprinkling in some, team reviews, I guess. Look back at everybody's season, kind of do a little review on their season, see where they're at, see how they feel going forward into next season. So there's going to be a lot of that, but once the playoffs are done, we'll probably be going to once a week until next summer, late next summer. So we're getting to the end, guys. Regular season is basically done. So thanks for joining me. I'll talk to you guys on Sunday.